Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that this video finds you well. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the newest fragrance by the company Issey Miyake, and this one is called Fusion d'Issey, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin my fragrance review of Fusion d'Issey by Issey Miyake, I do want to say that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, if you like fragrance reviews just like this, but also top 10 videos, giveaways, unboxings, pretty much anything having to do with fragrances, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner, and of course, while you're at it, please be sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell. This way, whenever I do upload these videos, they will get delivered straight to your feed. So here we have Fusion d'Issey by Issey Miyake. This is a brand new fragrance released in 2020. I really think the bottle is pretty cool for this one. So it has this sort of faceted look on the cap here. It is a bit rounded off towards the top, and then the aesthetics of it are really cool, and I'm really enjoying it. So the perfumer for Fusion d'Issey is Natalie Lorson, and Natalie Lorson has quite the extensive resume, of fragrances that she's made. So definitely go ahead and check that out. But what I particularly like about this one is that it's much different from Issey Miyake L'Eau de Cei pour Homme fragrances. Whenever I think of L'Eau de Cei pour Homme, I think of this characteristic combination of yuzu, but also lotus. And so it's this clean, sometimes sharp, white floral that has this really tart, somewhat bitter, and exotic smelling citrus in the opening. And this one is quite different from that. You have fig nectar, you have coconut milk, you have cardamom and geranium and lemon and sandalwood and some other spices. It's a really unique note breakdown. I'm excited to tell you what I get from this smell, but let's start with the presentation. So I don't know if you can tell, but this is actually a really big box. I'm holding my hand out quite far from the camera. This is a 150 ml size, which translates to 5 fluid ounces, and it's eau de toilette concentration. The serial number is printed below the UPC on the bottom, and on the back you have your ingredients as well as a description of the fragrance in English and French. Feel free to pause your screen if you'd like to read it. As far as the bottle is concerned, it looks really cool. You have this cap with all these varying facets on it. The name of the fragrance and the name of the company is here on the front. All of your information may be located on the bottom. The cap for this fragrance does click into place. You can pick it up from the cap. Just be careful, especially if you have the big size, because it is quite heavy. And the distribution on the atomizer is nice and wide. Let's continue with the smell. Now, as soon as this fragrance opens up, you are going to get this lactonic feel. Lactonic meaning it smells milky. So it opens up smelling milky, and that's on account of the coconut milk, but also the fig nectar. Now, I should mention that fig is a fantasy note in perfumes. You cannot extract the essence from the fig fruit. So it's really just a combination of different ingredients brought together to create this fig accord. But it really opens up in this very milky, lactonic sort of a way. And I feel like coconut is the best way to describe it. So I think far more people out there are familiar with coconut than they are with fig. And it does have this coconut flesh, coconut milk sort of a thing going on in there that I think is really likable. Now, it doesn't smell as coconut heavy as like a Virgin Island Water by Creed or a G by Harajuku Lovers. It's not that kind of a coconut, you know? But I think it's a nice combination with the cardamom that's in here. So I do actually pick up on cardamom in here. It's not as highly voted according to user votes on an online fragrance forum. All right, Fragrantica, right? I often refer to it in this very sort of, euphemistic way, or I try not to, call it by name, but it is what it is. So a lot of people are enjoying this one on Fragrantica. Far more likes and loves, but I think it is getting some likes on Fragrantica, and people seem to not agree that the cardamom note is strong in this one. I actually do pick up quite a bit of it. I do have a cardamom fragrance oil at home. I use cardamom in my own cooking as well, and I am picking it up in here. Now, geranium traditionally gives off this sort of a minty vibe, and I'm not necessarily getting that. So this fragrance doesn't smell minty at all. I feel like it's more about the fig and that sort of coconut vibe going on in the opening, and I can see how sandalwood plays a role in all of this, because sandalwood comes across smelling rather creamy, and so it does have this creamy nuance to it that I think is very likable. Now, ambroxan. We have to talk about ambroxan. It's listed as a note, at least on Fragrantica it is, and ambroxan is this note that is traditionally and typically thought of as having this aquatic, oceanic, slightly salty, I guess, vibe. A lot of people would call it sharp, especially in the way that it's presented in Dior Sauvage. They think of it as this sort of sharp, biting, metallic opening that can come across smelling a little peppery as well. That is definitely not the vibe that it gives off in this fragrance. It's really smooth. It adds this clean facet or clean nuance to the fragrance. It makes it a little more open, a little more billowy, a little bit more not as jam-packed and not as condensed. And so I think it's a really nice addition or inclusion to the fragrance. But this one doesn't smell aquatic or oceanic to me in any way. There is this sort of hazy or foggy look to the bottle. It's almost a little clouded in appearance, especially from this angle that I'm looking at it. And I think that that kind of perfectly conveys how this fragrance smells. That it is a little spicy. It is very creamy, very milky. But it also has this smooth sandalwood in the base to basically round things out. Now, this fragrance, in my opinion, smells nothing like L'Eau de Ses Pour Hommes by Issey Miyake. So if that has ever been a concern of yours, if you thought to yourself, okay, is this going to be a flanker that is just a mild tweak of the original formula? Nope, it is completely reimagined, completely reinvented. And I actually quite like this one a lot. Now, in terms of that coconut appeal, I have encountered it a few times before. So in terms of the way the coconut is utilized in here, it's something along the lines of Calvin Klein Eternity Air, I think it is. It's one of the Eternity flankers. Might be Eternity Now that I think about it. And also Marc Jacobs for Men, which is this really bulky rectangular bottle with a black top. But nevertheless, I like the way that there is this sort of contemporary release on the market utilizing that accord in the opening, and I think there is going to be a pretty good fan base for this one cool looking bottle at the end of the day. And I think if you're looking for something unapologetically fresh and citrusy, I think the original or perhaps one of the summer flankers would be a better bet for you. But if you're looking for something with a bit more of a fruity nuance and you like notes like coconut and fig, definitely check this one out. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, it's pretty unique. I think that if you were to compare it to anything, you know, that Calvin Klein Eternity flanker that I mentioned earlier, but then you can also find yourself comparing it to like Marc Jacobs for Men, but those fragrances have been around for a few years now. So in terms of something currently on the market that's still selling well, that has achieved a pretty good reputation, I think this one is quite disparate from that. So I find it to be pretty unique, and I always like when brands experiment with lesser known or lesser popular ingredients like coconut milk or fig or something like that. So really well done, but the overall smell is very pleasant. There's nothing offensive about this one, and yes, it does have a certain mass appeal quality to it that I really appreciate. In terms of the longevity, I got about 4 to 5 hours on my skin. Really, it could do a lot better in the longevity department. I was a little disappointed by that. In terms of the projection, great for the first hour. I think it has this lemony feel in the opening as well, but it's very short-lived. Really, there isn't a whole lot of citrus in here to speak of, and so I think had this fragrance been a little bit more strongly concentrated, if it had a lot more base heavy notes, if it weren't so reliant on the, and I know ambroxan is a base note, believe it or not, but if it weren't so reliant on these lighter smelling ingredients, I think that, you know, there could have been something done to this fragrance to help give it more of a presence in the hours to come, you know, as opposed to the fleeting fragrance that it currently is. And anyway, so projection, yeah, like I said, really good for the first hour, but then it became a skin scent right around that 3.5 to 4 hour mark. So the longevity and performance on this one is not great. Versatility is pretty good. I do think that it gives off a casual vibe just because of that coconut fig thing. I think that it would work really well for a younger gentleman. If you're a little bit older, you can find something a little bit more mature, sophisticated. Grey Vetiver by Tom Ford, even probably the original from this brand, or even you know, Nuit D'Issey, and there are many other. Wood and Wood is another one, and I know there are some other flankers that have been getting a lot. Pulse of the Night is really popular as well. I think those would work well for somebody who's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and I do think that this one is great for the hotter weather, but if you do live in a warm climate, you can wear this one in the autumn as well. And if you're wearing it indoors, wear it whenever you want, right? These are just recommendations. Presentation, I think, is really cool, and it's a gigantic bottle. I will give it that. My final verdict on this fragrance is I actually like this fragrance. I like the fact that the perfumer was given the opportunity to experiment with some ingredients that are not typically or traditionally used in the market. I like the way that this smells overall. I really like coconut. I really like fig. In perfumes, there was a period of time between kindergarten and second grade. I actually used to live in Greece, and I had a fig tree growing in my backyard, and I will always have fond memories of that. So there is this component of nostalgia in here that I really appreciate. I just feel like if you are a fan of the original, you're buying this because you're expecting something similar. You won't get that. You're more likely to get something similar to the original in one of the many summer flankers, but I actually really do like this one. I don't know if it's a love for me, but I do like it. So there you have it. That was my review of Fusion D'Issey by Issey Miyake. If you, owner, have tried this fragrance, please go ahead and let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for future videos. If you took something of value from this video, all you have to do is click on that red button in the corner, and also make sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell. Thanks again for watching. I love you all. We'll see you next time. Bye.